You are wondering to what extent have we been able to effectively or otherwise implement or manage these policies. Maybe the most recent one that readily comes to mind is the Naira redesign policy of this government, all right? Yeah, let's use that as a basis to have a conversation being under the what
has brought our economic down. And
was it a bad move in that light? Was that move, was it appropriate, was it timely?
Well, on many notes, because you need to be a participant of the economic to know the impact of that Naira redesign in the economic, to know the impact. Because for 3 months, our nation suffered from its own currency. And over millions of businesses in it. We shouldn't say we don't know that. As of today, our population is over 200 million. What is the total number of bank accounts in Nigeria? Between 30 to 50 million. So what does that tell you? Over 50% of the population are still unbanked.
So what is the problem? Was it the timing of the policy itself or the entire concept of it?
You see, what aspect of that policy do we want to talk about? Is it the cashless policy that came at the same time with the money redesign? Now, if you redesign money, why should there be scarcity? Why should there be scarcity? As I'm giving you 100 naira of old note, you are giving back 100 naira of new note. Is it not how it's supposed to be? So there was nothing implementing about the policy. I don't know how it came, and I don't know, and the new administration should look at it again holistically, because we don't know what that policy wants to achieve. But the policy has thrown Nigeria economic into another year behind.
Let's talk about our budgetary cycle as well, because all of these are very salient elements in the economy ultimately. The way we budget, whether it's capital expenditure or recurrent expenditure, and then the element of borrowing to fund budget, because of course, naturally, there would always be deficits, all right? What have been your assessments as well with regards to our budgeting in this country? Of course, over time, we've been able to achieve the January to December budgetary cycle, which again is a milestone for us as an economy. But then let's look at the other blocks within the budgetary cycle. Like I said, recurrent expenditure, capital expenditure, and so on and so forth, because a lot of concerned Nigerians, particularly analysts, are still saying that we are misplacing priorities in terms of what we allocate for capital expenditure and recurrent expenditure, because they say that we are being penny wise, pound foolish, because we are giving far less to capital and we're giving far more to recurrent. So how do we strike a balance, and what has also been your sentiments around that?
You know, our budget should have been dependent of our revenue. But what we generated, our expected revenue, our forecast revenue, it's not up to what we have budgeted to do for the year. Therefore, achieving budget timeline is very difficult, and that is not good for us. Even most of the borrowing, most times, they are not part of budget concealment. They just come along the line, focusing or expecting deficit. The next thing is to go and look for where to get money to fund the budget. Budget should be in expectation of what you have.
Okay, so you cut your coat according to your
cloth? Your size, yes. Because where corruption comes in is that when you have a budget that you cannot meet, what next? Is to go and look for how to fund the budget. Because there are already projects that you have put, everybody will be coming for it. Why is this not going? Why is this coming? So people will now begin to agitate, look, we need funding, we need money to do this, to do that. Now, if there's consumptive projects that will not be productive in the future for us to pay back. That is the challenge of Nigeria.
There's been the consistent argument that our problem is not with borrowing. And to support the argument, analysts have always said that the US is arguably the most indebted country on earth today. As of this morning, China, in terms of local debt, is doing over 20 trillion US dollars. What is the difference between the way we borrow and
fund industrialization? It's okay. But why should we borrow to subsidize fuel subsidy? Why should we borrow to, to give some peanuts to those who feel that there's a name they use for it, the vulnerable? That is, you are borrowing for consumption.
The poorest of the poor.
Or the poorest of the poor. So what you are doing now is that instead of you creating an institution that the poorest of the poor can put their potential into practice
and even bring value,
add value to the system, you are now borrowing to feed them. You are now borrowing to consume. There's going to be challenge in the future of how to pay that that money you have borrowed.
I'm going to talk to you about fuel, subsidy removal bits. But again, last year, the governor of Edo State, Governor Godwin Obaseki, had talked about, an allegation, many persons would say, of how that the government was allegedly printing money to augment revenue in order to be able to pay salaries. And at that time, he had projected that at some point, our debt will hit about 100 trillion naira, all right, whatever that is in dollar, by the way. But then we didn't see much of, if you like, much of a counter position from the government. From whether it's the monetary or fiscal authorities, whether it's the Central Bank of Nigeria or the Ministry of Finance with regards to data and maybe strong, if you like, empirical arguments and so on and so forth. Would you say, how do you make sense of a situation where we allegedly would have to print money to augment IGRO just so we can pay salaries?
That's a very poor economic system. But I remember then the Minister of Finance came out and said, no, we are not actually printing money.
But what's far-reaching when you come out and say, anybody could have said that.
No, the Edo State governor, there was, along the line, something also happened that makes me not to believe that statement.
Okay.
You remember when some state governors went to court to challenge this Naira redesign
policy? Yes.
Do you know that the Edo State governor went and guessed them in the Supreme Court and said, no, the policy should continue.
Right.
That Nigerian people should be left suffering. So if we have not, those governors had not won this case, do you know we have still be at standstill?
So you're saying there's a political
undertone.
Element.
Yes,
Okay.
there's a political undertone to that very Edo State governor whenever it comes to talk on national issue. It's not in line with the expectation of average Nigeria. So on that matter, I have my reservation on it, and I don't want. But then there's no way the nation should be printing money to sustain the economy. That's a very bad system.
So that takes us to the issue of fuel subsidy. It's been a long time coming. We know what happened in this country in January of 2012 when the former president of the People's Democratic Party, Dr. Ebele Goodluck Jonathan, had announced removal of fuel subsidy. There was protests across this country, particularly in the south and so on and so forth. Of course, majority of Nigerians at that time said, no, if you do that, you're going to plunge the country into extreme poverty, far worse than we already had seen at that time. And then Labour took to the streets, and there was this vehemence in terms of resisting that move at that time. But we look back now with the benefit of hindsight. People are now saying that was the best time compared to now for Nigeria to have removed fuel subsidy. How much of damage have we done to ourselves, to the economy, on account of allowing fuel subsidy to have stayed this long?
Well, Nigerians and Nigeria has played themselves into economic destructive policy by accepting, introducing this subsidy. Now, we have seen the bad side of subsidy. It's no longer helping us. Therefore, government needs to come out in clear terms and communicate to Nigeria, reaffirm the needs why subsidy has to go. But that has to be a convincing, a roundtable discussion. Every Nigerian needs to be carried along. And then if government is also going to remove the subsidy, they should also tell Nigerians that, look, this is the cost of the subsidy. For instance, if it is 500 billion naira, that 500 billion naira should be invested immediately. Immediately, in where Nigerians can see. It's not to say you're going to be putting that 500 million naira in part of budget, budget. No. For instance, for the past 5 years, 10 years, we have been paying subsidy, and we have been paying it. So if we want to remove subsidy now, we know how much that's going to be removed. We'll now look for a new agency. For instance, look at the security challenges we are facing. We can say, okay, there are voluntary organizations that we can bring into the system and start funding them. Something like Peace Corps, something like Vigilante Organization of Nigeria. This, you are taking money, because subsidy money is money that is readily available.
Right.
So let Nigerians see that this money that government is paying for some people who are buying this product, for some people who are using this product, we want to put it for where all of us, again, a larger person can benefit. Nigerians will say, okay, this is a welcome development. But when you say you remove subsidy, why do you remove subsidy? It's not my responsibility to make the NNPC work. In fact, government can alternative say, okay, guys in the refineries, since you are unproductive, we'll pay you off, okay? The money we have been paying you every month. We are going to use your salary to pay subsidy, because you are not working. We need to take a kind of drastic actions to bring our nation out of this jam lock. We must face it in reality. Why should you keep people in a petrochemical company for refineries for 5, 10 years? So what have they been doing? There are people who have been working there, there have been promotion, there have been recruitment. So what have they been doing? What have they been doing?
So in all that, you're saying we are getting off on the wrong footing with regards to how we manage the fuel subsidy process. That said, let's turn quickly to infrastructure development. As of yesterday, President Buhari had also inaugurated the second Niger Bridge, right? And this government, and indeed quite a huge section of Nigeria, believe that it's a landmark project. This government calls it a legacy, or one of the legacy projects of this administration. Would you say we've done well under this government with regards to infrastructure development, whether it's bridges, roads, whatever it is with regards to, housing even, because we understand there's a huge gap in the housing space. For example, this government has also recorded some strides, whether it's estates under the Family Homes Funds, under the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing, and so on and so forth. How much have we seen in terms of investments in infrastructure, including housing, and vis-a-vis what we see on the ground today by way of bridges, roads, and housing units?
In terms of infrastructure deployment, this government has really tried. Look at the second Niger Bridge. It has been news and news and news and news till 2015 when they started it. This is 2023. They've completed it. Commission. That's a great glory for this administration. In terms of housing, the last time the federal housing built any house in Nigeria was 1999. The last time the Federal Housing Authority, I don't know whether they are still operating.
They still
are. Okay, till 2016, when they started their mass housing project again. Recently, some houses were commissioned in Zuba.
All right.
But before then, there was one that was commissioned by Federal Housing and Federal Mortgage Bank in Gwagwalada, and some states across the nation. This housing deficit we have been facing is because the federal housing, if you know Gwarimpa, the place they call Gwarimpa in Abuja, is a product of federal housing. Look at the infrastructure around that place. Very beautiful. If you go to Zuba, the same thing. If you know Lugbe, these are the product. But when you go to these private estates, their infrastructures are very poor. The land size they give you, the houses are not affordable, So in terms of infrastructural development, look at the federal highways. Look Enugu, Port Harcourt. There's a place they call Border Bridge that links Opobo to Bonny. These are national assets that this government had engaged. Though Kaduna-Abuja road has been under construction, so we were told that due to the insurgency activities on that way, they are having some challenges. The East-West Road is under construction. These are major highway that we have in Nigeria. And then look at the Nigerian port councils. Then, the Calabar port is up, the Port Harcourt port is up. We are expecting the cocoa port, to come up. They are opening the Nigerian economy through infrastructural development. The government has really done a lot, but they have challenges in publicizing what they have achieved, and that's not what I'm here to do for them.
So they've got to take their destiny in their hands with regards to that. But let's also take a look at education sector, which is very critical, because take it or leave it, education drives development, all right? Nigeria as a country is not new to strikes, especially with regards to tertiary institutions.
Yes.
We've seen strikes happen in this country, for decades. But would you say this government has managed strikes better than the previous ones?
No. This government did not manage strike better than the previous one. If you look at the numbers of years, months lost during this administration, it's almost the same or more than some governments in the past. And I expected that this is a government that came on change mantra, that strike in the educational sector should have been managed better than this. The numbers of days that were wasted due to strike in this administration is high, and they shouldn't have been that. The president himself was not proactive in some issues that has to do with those strike. Sometimes it's after they have gone on strike for 3 months that he will intervene. And this is my opinion to the incoming administration. It should be watchful. It is government. It's not a minister's government. It should take ownership of Nigeria. The next administration should take ownership of Nigeria. It should override the ministers in some cases. When there are issues of national interest, the president can call the people involved and have a dialogue with them. People, Nigerians, yes, we don't trust government, but we trust our president.
Right.
Yes. We may not trust government, but we trust the president. So if the president can call for roundtable discussion, the people will hear him better than when ministers are not making headway.
Okay, so again, that brings us to the issue of approval of universities. Perhaps this government, under this government, was seeing more approval of universities than the previous ones, which ordinarily should be a good idea. But then you have thoughts in your head about how we have not been able to adequately fund other in the existing universities, and we're approving new ones. Is that misplacement of priorities?
But what this government did in terms of approval of universities is that some of the universities were upgraded, and we now have about 6 federal medical universities.
Right.
But these are existing
specialized institutions.
Yes, these are existing institutions that have been specialized on certain field before. Then when you talk of we getting more investors, of course, you see, Nigeria is a progressive nation, and we're one of the largest nation in Africa, or in the world. And then our population. So what we need to do is to look for area that can attract more foreign investment. There's a place, just a country or a state in Ukraine called Kwasi, the place that was attacked by Russia recently. Kwasi has 30 universities, and most foreign nationals are in that country.
That's just a state within Ukraine.
Yes, a state within Ukraine. Kwasi, that's 30 universities. If there's a report in 2019 that some states in America are going bankrupt due to foreigners not coming to the industry, due to the
I'm just going to pause you for a second so we can take a quick break. And when we return, John and I will continue. We'll just come back to wrap up this conversation. Stay with us.
You don't have to wait.
Please can you help me just get water? I'm just talking to secretary about it.
In another way.
How are you sure, sir?
Hope I'm not here.
The only area where Buhari defeat for that statement, now only appointment. When you're talking about project, the project is well at all. If you say you to spell at all, what does it start for? But if you say appointment, and in terms of appointment, you appoint people in short.
Be like what the man na
I'm making sure that when our leaders are the
I'm telling you.
Where they get the position first.
Why una no come win APC? Why una no win APC?
Get in our enemy. Your enemy. Why don't go win Lagos? Why not be their population? Why not go win Lagos? Now, see, let me tell you.
We appreciate you staying with us, everyone. So I was talking to John Desmond just a while ago about the achievements of this government, where they recorded remarkable successes, where they have also failed, whether it's in infrastructure development, in the economy, in education, and so on and so forth. But as we wrap up now, John, let's talk about areas such as the economy itself. Once again, because whether you like it or not, it drives how we develop. In fact, you are ranked on the basis of economic development, economic growth, if you like. But let's talk about the place of the SMEs now, small and medium-scale enterprises, because we understand that they are the engine room of an economy anywhere in the world, whether in Asia, continental America, Europe, the Middle East, and even back home in Africa, for example. What exactly do we need to do more? Because first, we talked about power at the top of this program this morning, but then what more do we need to do? Whether it's access to funding for these SMEs, seed capital, if you like, startup capital, and so on and so forth. There are other kinds of support. We understand that the business registration process under this government has significantly improved. I've heard the Vice President himself talk about this severally. We've seen occasions where the Vice President even brought officials from the Corporate Affairs Commission to register businesses on the spot. I mean, these are some of the landmark efforts made to ensure that business processes become much easier and then seamless. Are we doing better with SMEs today than we did before 2015?
Yes, in general, the SME cycle has improved.
Okay.
The administration policy that was designed has really promoted and help SME to grow. But along the line, especially with this Naira redesign, most of the SME just vanish. Especially with the Naira redesign.
So that worsens woes with regards to unemployment rates.
Yes, that thing just came to crumble the SME because I'm a victim of it. I have a business, and then for 3 months, going to 4 months, we couldn't access cash. And most of our suppliers are petty traders who don't have bank account. They are peasant farmers who live in rural area. Okay? Now, when we talk of SME, they are in categories. Some of us are in agro business. Some are in commodity services. Some are in value chain.
Services
not,
and so
It's not a kind of ICT that needs, that do banking transactions. There are hundreds of SME that our suppliers, the values lines are not connected to the banking system. That's what that Naira redesign policy didn't look at. And then what I expected was that, yes, the policy may be good, but at implementation, open your hands, open yourself to feedbacks. Within 3 weeks, let's go into the system and see. Let's test run it.
Some kind of pilot initiatives.
Let's have a pilot initiative. Is it going to work? And then the whole nation was thrown into darkness.
I want to use that quickly to also look at issue of inflation. We say inflation is global now, from UK to US to even the Pacific, for example, and then Africa is not immune to it as well. Is there something exclusive or peculiar about the inflation level that we are dealing with as against what you have in other parts of the world?
Yes, the difference is that where we are at inflation level is higher than where they were, but than where they are. Now, what I mean is that while you are growing, you are now growing higher. You look at maybe 10 years ago, there's no indices that say Nigeria is the poverty headquarter of the world. There's nothing like that. But because our inflation rate is growing, it's throwing more people into poverty. So our record as of today is a result of our inflation. That is the difference. We're already on a higher ground. So if you add it more, it throws more people out of business. Do you understand that? Their own is still less than 10%.
All right.
But ours is more than 20. We are 23% as of today.
I'm going to let you off now, but I just wanted to react to this very succinctly, right? A new government comes into place on the 29th of this month, that's Monday, so it's a matter of days away from today. What lessons do you think this government should have learned already? I mean, the incoming government should have learned already under President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, all right, to do far better, because some persons on the street have said, look, it is APC government to another APC government. So are we going to be hearing more of previous government again, as we have heard for the most part in the lifetime of this current administration?
Yes, the issue of previous government will continue reoccurring in the month of
Even
APC.
within the same party?
Yes, because let me tell you, if there is a project that this government couldn't achieve, the Air Nigeria.
Right.
Now, if the next government...
Even though the minister has given himself 100%,
yes,
I mean 100...
whatever he has given
yes.
himself, he has started a project. Now, if the incoming administration continue it, what I mean is that they are going to say, this shouldn't be our project. If this was done 2011, 2007,
right.
I don't know whether you understand. Look at the power sector, for instance. If states start generating now and we improve, they are also going to say, oh, this is not what we should be doing by now. Look at the rail. Do you know, apart from Abuja, Kaduna, there's no rail connecting the south to Abuja.
Right.
No rain. The southern corridor has no rain connecting them to Abuja. Now, if this administration do that now, they are still going to make reference. This is not what we're supposed to be doing. A high tech, a modern.
We ought to have progressed beyond
where we are. So that's not good. But the lesson they need to learn now is that they need to gather Nigerians for Nigeria. We need to look at what can work for us in our own country. It's not all about foreign policy, foreign design. It's all about Nigerian policy. The local content should be developed. Nigerians should be involved in developing Nigeria. Procurement should be look at our content. We can't be driving 50 million